Detroit Lions 31, Minnesota Vikings 29. Both teams 5-1 now. Awesome back and forth game here. Lions kicked the game-winning field goal with 15 seconds left, 44-yarder. Both feel like the Lions, depends on the perspective here. Lions made a few mistakes. I thought that aided the Vikings, brought them back in. David Montgomery, Vikings earned
it. Well, they blew an 11-point lead twice.
Yes. But even just like at the beginning, you have a fake punt that goes awry, and then the Vikings get up early.
Didn't go awry. The Vikings just stuffed it.
Okay, however you want to say it.
But that's this is part of the Lions, right? The Dan Campbell aggression. They are prone to doing that type of thing. And most of the time it works out in their favor, but every now and again it doesn't. This game started the way every other Vikings game has gone, right? They got ahead early. The 2nd and 17, I think, on the first drive, they got a big negative play. 2nd and 17, there was a complete breakdown in coverage for the Lions. Vikings get a sack. Now it's 3rd and 26. The Vikings defense plays soft. They actually give up most of that, and that's why the Lions were like, oh, let's go for the fake punt. Let's try and keep this drive alive. They don't get it. The Vikings get really good field position. Aaron Jones gets an immediate touchdown, barely touched. It's going to really test the hamstring, by the way. Guy coming back off a hamstring injury. Immediate, open it up, full throttle, sprint to the end zone. And then, so the Vikings are immediately, set up with an early lead again. And then the difference is they gave it up this time. And they go, when the Lions took the lead, that was only the 7th snap this season that Minnesota has trailed in a game. They basically been leading every game because of the way they start. They started that way again, but this is the first team that was like, nope, we're going to come back. We're not just letting you walk off into the distance.
It was a fun back and forth game, man. We talked about coming in the stats that Jared Goff had against Brian Flores' blitz. You made the point on the instant reaction show last night. Was it so much blitz answers as just Goff making some huge throws? I don't know where the PFF grade ends up for Jared Goff because he did fumble twice, subtly fumbled twice, and the ball bounced right back to him. That's going to hurt him a little bit. But when he threw the football, he was outstanding.
The Vikings have had, despite having this insane, points differential this season and being undefeated until this game, and every game sort of following the same script, they get out ahead early. They tended to walk away from teams. A couple pegged it back. They've also had a bunch of these plays, massive high leverage plays within games that haven't always gone their way. Same thing in this game. There was this wild fumble where Harrison Phillips ripped the ball from Tim Patrick, where Tim Patrick was lying on Phillips at the time. And so the Vikings challenged this. They didn't give it at the time. They called him down. The Vikings challenged it. We're he's not down. He's literally lying on the defensive tackle that's ripping the ball from him. They didn't get given that one. Then, as you said, twice the Vikings' pressure actually did work and get to Jared Goff. And on both occasions, the ball just bounced back, right?
Right back to him, yeah.
One occasion, strip sack from behind, blindside, classic hit. It literally just bounces off the floor and lands right back in Jared Goff's hands as he hits the turf. That's a massive leverage swing play if it goes the other way. And then the other one was another pressure. Goff tries to get out of it. Goes almost full Will Levis, just pitches it backwards. And there's 3 offensive linemen over there who just fall on it. Those are 2 huge leverage plays so amazing chess match between Ben Johnson, the Lions offense coordinator, Brian Flores, the kind of architect of this defense is killing everybody. And those were 2 plays where Flores wins and gets nothing for it because the ball bounces back to the other team.
Yes. I thought so. There was a little bit of fumble luck there. I would say Goff, when he threw the ball, like I said, was outstanding. Last year we talked about the blitz and Goff, 55 blitzes, and Goff came back with almost 500 passing yards just against the blitz, against Flores. In this game, we might have slightly different numbers. What I saw, Goff against the blitz was 14 of 16 for 149, touchdown and a sack. In this one, Next Gen Stats has Goff under pressure, 51% of his dropbacks against the Vikings. So blitz.
That's the play.
Blitz is a play call. When we use the words, right? Blitz is a play call.
Yeah.
Did you send an unexpected rusher, right? That's a blitz. pressure is you actually got there and affected the quarterback. So by next gen, 51% of his dropbacks, and he was 10 of 11 for 164, 2 touchdowns when pressured. Goff was making some huge throws, including hitting co-worker Amon-Ra St. Brown a bunch, but particularly on the game-winning drive to help set up the game-winning field goal.
So this was the thing. I think overall, Ben Johnson, I think, does have better answers to this Flores defense than any other offensive mind in the game currently, right? He certainly did a better job of this than any of the Shanahan derivatives where Flores has had them just wrecked. But I do think that the biggest differentiator here was not actually Ben Johnson and his answers. It was Jared Goff just playing out of his mind in situations that typically quarterbacks do not play well in. This reminded me of Jared Goff. You remember his Cal games where like that offensive line was garbage and he's just getting torched and he's just standing there tall in a pocket getting blitzed by people and he's just standing there delivering a pass anyway, deep down the field, touchdown, right? Like every play is Jared Goff getting lit up
a lot
and just delivering it anyway, right?
Yes.
And just standing there and going, I don't care. I'm going to stare down the barrel of this gun and fire the ball and score a touchdown over the top of this pressure. That was what was happening in this game. Like the pressure schemes and what Flores was sending, it was working a large part. But
Taylor Decker against Jonathan Grenard. Grenard won a lot.
Grenard was inches away from like 3 or 4 game-changing plays, right? Yep. He has one where he swipes. He's like getting the classic sort of round the corner strip sack, bats on the quarterback's throwing arm. And somehow it just didn't affect it. And Goff just doesn't care. Just shuffles up a foot and delivers the pass. You're like, that was normally a quarterback when he feels the contact on this arm, panics, right? It's like pulls the ball, runs, tries to get out of it. Goff just like takes a step forward and delivers a pass anyway. So against pressure, according to PFF's numbers, Goff was 11 of 13 for 156 yards and a touchdown, no interceptions, which is 12 yards per attempt and a passer rating of 142.3. Generally speaking, when quarterbacks get pressure, their passer rating drops 30 to 35 points, and that's why pressure is an important thing in and of itself. Goff simply had one of the best games of all time in the face of pressure. And yeah, Ben Johnson had some answers. The Vikings defense also had some bad plays, like, Stephon Gilmore just fell over on one play, and then they had a walk-in touchdown because of it. But God, Jared Goff had a game where it's like, if your quarterback is going to do that in the face of pressure, there is no defense in the world that can stop that. Like, there just isn't. That is a genuine cheat code. It is I have the skeleton key to whatever lock you're going to throw at me. It's unstoppable. Jared Goff had an unstoppable good performance against the Vikings, and that's now his second or third consecutively. And the Lions, remember, I think it was after week 2, maybe week 3, we were like, the Lions are looking really good, and Jared Goff's kind of played pretty bad. What happens if he starts to play really well?
Yeah.
That's what's happening right now. Jared Goff is now playing out of his mind, and everything else is still where it is, except Aiden Hutchinson.
There are some hidden plays. I mean, the stats are ridiculous. There are some hidden plays that make it a little bit worse than the stats would show, but 84% completion percentage since week 4, 7 touchdowns, no picks, 154 passer rating since week 4, and number 1 in EPA per dropback, Jared Goff. All per 33rd team. Thank you for those stats. Appreciate it. I've got also the most Detroit Lions stat of all time.
Oh, yeah?
I had to look into this. So Jahmyr Gibbs has 2 rushing touchdowns. The first one, 45 yards, right? I mean, I cannot rave about the Lions offense enough every single week. My guy, Jameson Williams, I liked his receiving yard projection. He had -4 yards. It's fine. It's
great.
fine. I can lose once. It's okay. -4 yards in this game. Didn't matter. Amon-Ra St. Brown had 7 first downs. He was unbelievable. Jahmyr Gibbs created his big plays, but he has a 45-yard touchdown. His second touchdown was for 8 yards in the red zone on 3rd and 7. And so I had to look this up because the Lions just ran it up the middle. So the most Lions stat of all time, I had to be a little specific with this, but I brought this up last year. It's 3rd or 4th down with 4. I used the filter for our friends at PFF. 3rd down or 4th down with 4 to 8 yards to go. So it's a clear pass situation. And I wanted to know
how often they run.
Not how often they run, but how successful.
Okay.
Right? Who's got the most first downs on 3rd or 4th down, 4 to 8 yards to go. Over the last 2 years, David Montgomery has 6 first downs in those situations. Number 1 in the NFL. Number 2 in the NFL is Jahmyr Gibbs with 4, tied with Alvin Kamara. The Lions have 12 of those as a team. I took out QB scrambles and everything, right? It's just running back runs. Let's call this disrespectful runs, right? It's 3rd and long-ish. You should not be running the football. And it's not even these like draw plays. They're just like, we're going to run inside zone. We're going to run outside. We're just going to run a normal run play. They did it last year against the Chargers on 4th and 6.
Yeah.
Remember with Montgomery? That was what made me first think of this. Lions have 12 of these over the last 2 years, and no team has more than 7. Disrespectful runs. Conversion down, 4 to 8 yards to go. I could have expanded it, maybe even made it higher. In Lions, 0.86 EPA per play on those plays. And of all the things that the Lions do that seems backwards, it's either, depending on how you look at it, it's either backwards or it's forward thinking. And Greg Olsen, every time he does a Lions game, says this is forward thinking. They run on 3rd and long because they're going to go for it on 4th down. And then what you're actually doing is creating this advantage. In this particular play against the Vikings have no linebackers, right? Because they're all walked up. And it's kind of like when you just make one block, hit the seam, and it's there's no help, and they ran it in for a touchdown. I just thought it was fascinating because the Lions do a lot of things unique to other teams around the league, and this is one of them. And it's just we're just going to straight run the ball in must-pass situations and have more success than everyone else.
Yeah, they do that. Their propensity to run the ball in passing situations, even on those do or die plays, like those 4th downs, where it's like you don't have 2 shots at this. You need to pick it up now. Their willingness to run the ball with like 4+ yards is kind of crazy.
Do you remember the play last year? That was when I first brought it up on the podcast. I was like, they just ran outside zone on 4th and 6.
Yeah.
And they got it. Like they owned the line of scrimmage and got it. I've never seen play calls like that, but they work.
One more stat I wanted to bring up to highlight the Jared Goff thing. The other reason it felt like they were just killing this defense is every 3rd down they were doing it, right? So Jared Goff passing on 3rd down, 5 for 5, 76 yards and a touchdown, 15.2 yards per attempt. 4 of those 5 plays were pressured. So again, Flores was getting, like, the scheme was working. It's not like the Lions just had like, we got this shut down. Last year, it did feel like late in the season, the Lions just had it, like the Flores defense couldn't do anything. They had the answers. They had the code. It was different this year. Like Flores' stuff was working. It's just that Goff invalidated all of it by finding the plays. And they weren't necessarily wide open plays that had answers. Some of them were. Like they had a wide open guy against 0 blitz. There were some plays where Ben Johnson had answers. But I really think that the key difference in this game was Jared Goff playing out of his mind.
So he was outstanding. I also want to highlight on the other side, first off. Really quick. Brian Branch is awesome.
Yes.
Another week. Brian Branch is awesome. He almost had a fumble recovery for a touchdown, ruled out of bounds, but he keeps making plays, had an interception.
That was so much closer than it looked from the first angle.
Yeah.
Like they showed the angle from like the right-hand side of the receiver. It's like, he clearly stepped out of bounds. And then you see the other side where you see the actual sideline. Most of his foot is in the air. Like barely a cleat is touching out of bounds.
Yeah.
The foot is like hanging over the side, just about out of bounds.
I want to highlight Sam Darnold on the other side too. I mean, he finishes 22 of 27 for 259. Had the bad interception to Brian Branch. Also had a touchdown. A few big-time throws in there. Unbelievable downfield throw to Jordan Addison for 51 yards in this comeback attempt. And I don't want to fall into this. It's easy to fall into this pattern, Sam, where when the team wins, we just talk all good about the winning team and all bad about the losing team. Like we've said in other games, Sam Darnold, he didn't really play up to par, and they still won. I thought he was really good in this game. And made some huge throws in this comeback attempt when they needed him.
I mean, at one point in this game, probably the first time the Lions were 11 points clear, I was like, okay, this has exposed the Vikings as a sort of potential fraud. I was readying the meme, right? The phone call, potential fraud alert, and then the Vikings logo. I was like readying the tweet, right? But I actually was quite impressed by how they came back multiple times in this game. Like I think the better team won. Like, I think the Lions did deserve this win, particularly because Jared Goff playing that way. But yeah, I think the Vikings actually, they showed that they are for real. Like, this was not, they haven't been undefeated by fluke. They were impressive coming back multiple times in this game. And, you know, they could have snatched it at the end. Like, the way it went, they just didn't have enough time on the clock. But if they'd had a bit more time, if that last drive hadn't been 15 seconds, but had been twice that, 30 seconds, I would have said they had a pretty good shot of moving the ball into field goal range in 30-something seconds.
So, look, 31-29 is the final. One other thing I thought was interesting at the end, the Lions took a knee multiple times to set up the, 44-yard game-winning field goal?
Yeah.
Were they worried, because they let the Vikings back in, depending on your perspective. The Vikings earned it by forcing the fumble, but when it was 28-23 Lions, David Montgomery fumbles, gets recovered, brought back for a touchdown by Ivan Pace. That gave the Vikings the lead, 29-28. Was Dan Campbell just saying, we're not fumbling again? Because they stopped running plays, and they settled-ish for a 44-yard field goal, actually lost a little bit of ground on the kneels rather than trying to run the ball. Again, the Lions do a lot of unique stuff. Extreme end of fourth down conversions, punt fakes, runs on third and fourth down when it's third and long, all these things that we're mentioning. Is this another one of those where they just said, we're not taking any chances here? Because they wanted to run the clock, but they could have run even more clock too.
Yeah.
Because they kicked it with 19 seconds left. If they ran the ball for 1 or 2 yards on each of those plays and didn't fumble, it would be a walk-off field goal.
Right.
And they left a little bit of time, and they also said, okay, we're going to make sure we don't fumble. I just thought that was interesting from a game management standpoint.
And could potentially have picked up a first down by running it. Like, could have just ended it.
Well, they needed to kick the field goal to win it.
No, but like got themselves, taking all the time off the clock, and by getting the first down, put themselves in.
Yeah, I mean, they were probably going to run the clock anyway.
And we mentioned this before, but it is worth re-emphasizing. Like, Jonathan Grenard in this game was phenomenal. He's only going to end up with 1 sack, but he was so good. I mean, he was destroying Taylor Decker, who's a good offensive tackle, repeatedly. Almost had a strip sack, right? And then was so close to a couple of other massive plays as well.
Yeah, like the Vikings were creating their unblocked pressure and just in winning reps, winning one-on-ones, which they don't always do, right? They're not a great man-for-man pass rush team. They're better than they were, but a lot of it's the scheme. They were actually winning their one-on-one. So this was a little backwards, because if you told me Grenard's going to have that type of game, I'd say Lions are going to struggle. Right. But yeah, to your point, Goff made up a lot of big throws. First
game for the Lions without Aiden Hutchinson. I would say they platooned for pressure reasonably well, but a lot of that was going up the middle against Garrett Bradbury, which is not going to be a repeatable feat against a lot of teams. So we're still sort of TBD how that's going to pan out.
It's still one of those games, like if Hutch was there, you'd have 7 or 8 from him, and a bunch of other guys with 2 or 3.
Right.
I do wonder if that's going to come back to bite. Also, my boy Terrion Arnold, man, you got to crack replace on that Aaron Jones touchdown, man. Just let it see the crack block. You got to replace him. He got sucked in. Aaron Jones just walking in for 45 yards or whatever it was. Come on, man.
Blown contained.
Arnold thought he was going to be a good run defender at the NFL level.
Thanks for watching all the way to the end of our video.
For more great content, click here to subscribe and here to watch another video. We'll see you again soon.